and thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren, and I'm joined today by Leisa Peterson, a transformational money mindset coach, best-selling author, and financial educator who helps people revolutionize their relationship with money. Drawing from over 30 years in financial services, she founded Wealth Clinic to guide individuals past financial anxiety toward holistic wealth building. Author of The Money Catalyst and The Mindful Millionaire, Leisa combines practical financial strategies with mindfulness practices to create lasting transformation. Recognized by Forbes as one of the pioneering 10 women driving growth in wealth management and investing, she hosts the Mindful Millionaire podcast and YouTube channel. Her expertise has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, The Week, Huffington Post, and Gaia Media Network. Winner of SRQ Magazine's 2023 Women Who Roar Illuminator Award, Leisa empowers clients through online workshops and transformative retreats, particularly supporting those at pivotal crossroads where money intersects with personal vision. Leisa lives in Sedona, Arizona with her husband, Tim, and enjoys visits from their two successfully launched children. Thanks for joining me, Leisa.
So happy to be here, Lauren.
Our goal for today is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a huge part of adulting. So today, Leisa, we're going to talk about money catalysts. Almost said money Cadillacs. Same thing. But before we jump into that, can you let me know how you became so passionate about money and helping others understand it?
Pretty simple. We didn't have very much growing up. It created a lot of stress in my home. And I decided early in life that if I could only have money, then all my problems would be solved. As we know, that's not quite that simple. But from my mind, that's how it worked. And so I began a journey pretty early in life to figure out how to master this thing called money. Practically from a mindset perspective, so many layers to money, but that's why I'm so passionate about it. Is I know what it's like to struggle, and I don't want anyone to have to struggle with money.
That's what adulting is easy has always been about. This idea that if you're not worried about where your next meal is coming from, if you're not worried about paying your rent or your mortgage, you can focus on other things in life. And that's really what matters, is living, not the money itself. But why do you think money should be important, though, to listeners?
I love the title of your show because it really is about adulting. Like, I think not everybody adults with money. I'll be honest with you. I mean, there are
Right.
people at all ages that, and what I mean by that is like taking full responsibility for it, for learning about it, for knowing how it works, for knowing how you get tripped up and you self-sabotage, and like stopping that. Like
Yeah.
it's so important, obviously, because we need to pay our bills. We need to have a roof over our head. We need a car to, drive if we're in a place that we need one. But we can't go without it. And many times it's uncomfortable. So people do like to avoid it. Yet when we come into confidence with it, it changes our life in so many different ways.
Come into confidence with it. I like that. Yeah, it's money. If you have a hard time with it, you can't just avoid it because you have to use it in your everyday life. It's not like if you're an alcoholic, you can be like, all right, no alcohol. You can't do that with money. You have to figure out how to handle it and how to have some. And it's funny when you were talking about people don't do adult things when it comes to money. I'm imagining like if I give my 4-year-old niece $1, like she's not going to be like, all right, let me save 50 cents and spend 50 cents or whatever, right? She's going to go buy gummy bears or whatever with it immediately, right? And I do think that some adults that, what comes in goes out.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at the data, even though we live in a country where people on average make pretty good money, you have a situation where it doesn't get saved. And part of it's because it is expensive to live, but a lot of it has to do with the strategy of like, wait a minute, how can I have a savings account? How can I invest? How can I learn to invest? Like, those are not things that we're taught. We're taught way more about being a consumer.
Absolutely. That's like what is assaulting our senses at all times. So you wrote your book about money catalysts. What is a money catalyst?
Well, a catalyst is where an extra ingredient of some kind gets added to speed up the transformational process, right? So the idea of a money catalyst is that through reading the book, through learning from the teacher Maya, who this woman Mirabelle, because it's a fictional parable. In this case, I felt like that was more applicable to money than even a nonfiction book, because we learn through story and we like to learn, like, what are they struggling with? Oh, I get how that relates to me. It's way more fun. Uh, but the catalyst is, in this case, speeding up the process of something that could happen naturally, but you don't want to waste time. You just want to get it done right now, fast.
Yes, now that you mentioned catalyst, I think I remember that from chemistry back in high school. So can you briefly walk us through? And I love, by the way, I love the idea of the parable. I'm like a huge fan of the book The Alchemist, or,
Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of comes to mind with these two different role models that the guy had. So I love that, and learning through story. I think that makes everything so much more sticky. But yeah, can you briefly walk us through the 8 money catalysts? I know you wrote a whole book on this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to like hit people on their commute here. So we don't probably have time to go, obviously, at like, don't read the book to me is what I'm saying. But if we could just
Yeah.
go through briefly.
Right. So it starts with Awaken to Possibility. This is where I see people get stuck. They're successful, but they can't see beyond their current reality. So in my practice, I like to help people look at the big picture, see what's working, what's not working. That's what you're doing, and that's what the character is doing on the journey, and giving her a starting point, or giving you a starting point as you're beginning your journey. The next is begin within. This is the foundation of everything I do at Wealth Clinic. After 30 years of working in traditional financial services, I learned that spreadsheets in the world won't help if someone's mindset is working against them. So this is about, let's understand, like, or let's slow down and understand that there's a gold mine in your own mind. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your behaviors about money are all clues to, like, is it working? Is it not working? Are there some tweaks I need to make? And so then we go to what I call the unearthing of the abundant world. And this
Really,
is
real
where,
quick. Sorry.
yeah,
I'm so sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah,
Um, so with begin within, what are some of those mindsets that might be working against people? Just if you have any
yeah.
examples.
You have to work really hard to make money. Like, that's one. I've
Mhm.
got to, work long hours. I've got to over compensate in areas that I feel like I'm not smart about. I have to prove myself to the world. Those are things that they feel like they're helping us. And maybe in the beginning they do, because they give us a motivation, but that motivation wears out after a while, because if you always have to work your butt off to make a lot of money, that's going to be exhausting. And I've seen plenty of examples where people were just more strategic in their especially I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. They're more strategic in, like, where is the money? That's where I'm going to focus. I'm not going to do all this stuff that doesn't lead to, increasing my income, for example. But if we work really, really hard, then yeah, you get that. Does that help?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then some of those other just like almost like tropes that are out there, money is the root of all evil, billionaires are evil, people with wealth are not good people. There's some of those that I've witnessed over time as well.
Yeah, the other big one is, like, it's better to give than to receive, which
Which
it's
if you're giving, someone's receiving. It's like every time it's 50-50, isn't it?
exactly. And if you're always giving and not receiving, or you feel uncomfortable receiving, you're going to burn out.
Right, right. That's a good point. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for pausing me, and I'll give you time to do that as we go. The next is Unearthing the Abundant World. And that's about shifting out of scarcity, which is like a place that I describe in the book of what we often live in, and how to go from scarcity and notice the patterns in scarcity and move into, what does an abundant world even look like for you? Because the world isn't going to show you that. You're going to have to create that for yourself. Does that make sense?
It does. And a lot of people live in a scarcity mindset where, there's like no win-win situations. everything's like quid pro quo. But really, the more I've gone through life, the more I realize that we like rising tide floats all boats. We can all do better over time. It's not like if I have money, that means someone else doesn't. And I think that's a hard thing for people to realize. And also with money, like you said, how a lot of people think that it's hard to get or you have to work hard for it. Sometimes that's not true. Sometimes money, I mean, it's definitely a renewable resource, right? You spend it, you can make more. And sometimes, like, once you start spending money to make money and investing, and it just like it all flows and it becomes more abundant too. And this idea that I just think if you're operating from this scarcity mindset, you make very, I think, short term decisions rather than long term decisions too.
Totally. There's science about what you're talking about. Like they've proven that that happens. The other way to think of scarcity is that you're playing life to not lose versus setting yourself up to win, which you can't make these decisions inside like the opposite inside of the other one. You have to break out of whatever it is that's motivating you to look at the world through a lens of fear and doubt and uncertainty that will not take you to the abundant world. So
And I'm a big
yeah.
sports fan, and you can see that happens in so many sporting events where one team's up by a lot, and the things that they were doing to be successful, to be winning by a large margin, they stop doing towards the end and start trying to not lose, and then that's how they lose. I see that all the time because they were doing like the things that they were doing to make them win, they stopped doing because they're trying to not lose, and that's yeah, that came to mind as you were talking too, and yeah, okay, sorry, go on.
Isn't that interesting? I've never thought of it that way, but it is, when we tap into these truths, they apply everywhere in life. Like we can see the patterns showing up. And with money, like of all the things in our lives that will make the biggest difference, if we can figure this out and change any patterns, like we'll shore ourselves up in whatever we want, whether it be asking for a raise at work, because we're like, this is the value I'm creating. These are the things that I am doing that validate your company, making or this company making more money as a result of me being here. Like that's a abundant world sort of decision, an approach to life. So then we move into nurturing your inner wealth. This catalyst is where like mindset coaching really comes in because it's it's beyond just fixing limiting beliefs. I work with clients to help them cultivate the wealth that already exists within them, like tapping into their talents and intuitive wisdom and creative problem solving and the natural gifts that are the true like source of our abundance. And when we're only focused like on the mind, we tend to shortchange and miss out on all these other gifts that we bring into the world. And I know you said that you have a lot of men listeners, and I'll tell you the most powerful men, here I am at 58, most powerful men that I see in the world tap into their intuitive wisdom, and they're not afraid of saying, hey, yeah, I've got an intuitive nudge, like, can I talk to you about this? Or something's not right here and my mind is telling me everything's fine, but there's something that just doesn't work. Can we go deeper with this? That's what nurturing your inner wealth is all about.
That makes sense. That's like, if you have a gut feeling about something, I think not engineers, I think entrepreneurs are really good about intuitively knowing where things are heading and cutting through a bunch of noise. I mean, anytime you're consuming any news, there's going to be some pundit that's saying, the world is going this way, and some pundit that says the world is going the other way. And I think entrepreneurs, the ones that are really good at guiding their business and making strategic decisions, intuitively know what to stop doing, when to stop doing it, when to double down on what they're really good at, when to expand to new markets and things like that. So I was kind of hearkening to entrepreneurs as you were talking there, men and women.
Yeah. And I've witnessed over again, the money flows more easily when you're aligning like your efforts to make money with who you really are and not who you think you should be. And
Yeah.
that's a big part of adulting is like the world tells me I should do this. The world tells me that I should think this way or be this way or do these things. But when you really tap into like, wait a minute, that isn't working for me, and you go your own path, you will have greater success with money ultimately because there's a sense of confidence that comes with just knowing yourself. Yeah.
And
So
then if
we're
you're
tap
surrounding
yeah.
yourself with people that balance you out, that have different traits than you have, where you bring your strengths and they bring their strengths, and that's when, I hate to use the word synergy, but that's where the synergies really happen. That's where like you really start cooking with fire. Growing up as a millennial, a lot of times we were taught about our strengths and our weaknesses, and we were taught to we need to build up our weaknesses. Nowadays, I feel like we're like, no, find somebody whose strength is your weakness and then strengthen your strengths, you know?
That's so good. That's so good. The next catalyst is about defining your own abundance. And this is where every client I've ever worked with, I need, before I can help them with their financial strategy, I want them to tell me like what does true wealth mean to them? Is it financial freedom? Is it legacy building? Is it impact? Is it just because you want a very expensive car? Like I don't care what it is, quite frankly, but if you aren't being open about what your North Star is, it's going to be harder to achieve your, financial, make decisions to achieve the things that you most want. And so getting to what is true abundance, what does it look like for you? What does it feel like for you? What and a lot of times it's like it's not just the final result, it's the process of getting there.
Are there any patterns that you see with people when they define their own wealth? Is there anything that you're seeing kind of across the board?
One thing I have seen is that people don't spend enough time thinking about this. Maybe they think about it in the short term, like, buying something. Like I want to buy a house or I want to buy this car, I want to start investing. But it's not just the most immediate things. And I'm thinking about the millennial audience and the people that you've told me that listen to this show. It's important to think about what's important right now. But I also encourage you to look at like 10 years out, for example, because we change over time. And if with money, it's very particular that we want to be planning for today and for tomorrow because when we have, for example, more money, like in our case, it was important for us to build wealth because we wanted to have greater freedom in our lives later on. Even though we didn't know exactly how we would spend our time, we just wanted more freedom. And we got in touch with that. At first, I thought, I love my work. I want to do this forever. And that's awesome. But that changes as your life changes. And so that's the pattern I notice. I think people don't spend enough time kind of thinking about, well, okay, I get today, but what about 10 years from now? What would I really like that to look at like? And the reason it's so powerful, Lauren, is that when you say, like, I want to be a millionaire in 10 years, like your brain is so freaking amazing to start figuring out how to have that happen. And it happens a lot more than people realize just by saying, this is important to me. Maybe it even happens faster. But I'm curious what's coming up for you as I say that.
I was thinking about if you say that out loud, then maybe some fear creeps in that now that I've made this a goal, what if I don't hit it? And maybe that's why people don't think about it and don't set these long-term goals and don't talk about it.
You are totally right. So that would be like the underlying fear is what if I say I want this and yet it doesn't happen? Will I be disappointed in myself? And what we're just saying in this moment is like, what do you really have to lose? Because being disappointed is one thing, but not giving yourself a chance to actually go for it is a big, big deal. And far too many people live that way their whole
On,
life.
on our last episode, my guest brought, I think it's a Henry Ford quote, but it's like, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. So,
Yeah.
if you even are thinking that way, like what if I think it's okay to say things like I want to pay for my kids to go to college. I want to drive a nice car. I want to have a nice house. We need to give ourselves permission to want these things and to go and get them. And if you believe you can, like you said, it's magical. You'll get there. But
Yeah.
you definitely won't get there by accident. I don't think. I
No.
mean, I'm sure it happens for some people, like an inheritance or something, but short of something like that, you're not going to get there if you don't set your goal and start heading in that direction.
Well, I'll even go one step further because I do work with a lot of people who inherit money. If you've never prepared yourself for managing that money and all of a sudden it comes in, that's why lottery winners, like
Ugh,
3 out of 5, are bankrupt within
yeah.
a few years. They're
Yeah.
just not prepared to hold space for the energy associated with that money.
Yeah.
So I really can't think of any negative reason of not setting good goals for yourself that are stretch goals, even if you break them down and you're like, okay, 10 years seems like I have no idea. I'm going to say I want to be a millionaire in 10 years. In 5 years, I might not be there, and I'm okay with that, but I'm going to give myself that opportunity to see what comes by setting big goals. No harm.
Absolutely.
The next one is amplifying your finances. And this is when we get into that practical financial strategy. And I'll tell you something because we talked about this before we started. My daughter recently, in the past 3 years, started a content creation company and Instagram and TikTok and all of that. And one of the things she negotiates with brands because she's really good at selling things through her to her community in the adventure space. And one of the things I put in the book actually was inspired by her negotiating. And what she's learned is that if she doesn't hear a no, then that means she hasn't actually taken it as far as she can take it. And that is not something that many people feel comfortable with. They think, especially, I mean, I'll speak for women because I see this a lot and I work with a lot of women, like they struggle with that. But we're planting that seed now in everyone's listening minds, right? That they're like, have I pushed it to the point where I've heard a no, whether it be in my salary negotiations, in things that I'm wanting to achieve or create? Like, can you feel comfortable receiving it and knowing, okay, now I know where I'm at and I know that I'm at the ceiling at this moment. What do I need to do to go so that I get a yes next time?
Yep. When I was in sales, I always assumed I had a quota of yeses and a quota of nos. You're not going to hear yes every single time. So if one out of every 10 times you hear yes, that means you got to hear nine no's until your next yes. So it's always
That's so
music to my
good.
ears.
That's so good. And then the last one is navigating decisions, because once we put all these pieces together, then our work becomes like having a really solid approach to ensuring that we're making decisions, bringing all the data into the moment rather than just our intuition or rather than just the financial details. Like, let's put it all together and make better decisions for ourselves.
I love it. So as how much of your book and these money catalysts have you been subconsciously using in your practice over these years with people? And have you known about this framework for a long time, or is it something that has come about over the years?
It's definitely come about over the years. So, working with people for 3 decades, I realized that people don't have 30 years to figure this out. I don't want it to take that long for people. And so I kept asking myself, what's the fastest way? I used to hope that you could skip steps, quite frankly. Like, I'd love it not to be 8 steps. I'd love it to be like 3 steps. But wealth building is one of the most complicated things I think we have to navigate in the modern world, because there are so many short-term pressures, and so many costs and things are expensive and inflation is a real thing. So yeah, the 8 steps, I live it, I breathe it. I've used it to teach my children and my clients. And And when people apply it, it really pays off. And so it was fun to be able to put it into a fictional parable where you could watch the evolution in someone's life and where she starts and where she finishes. And she's married. And one of the things also I'll mention is that this isn't just about us. For those of us in partnerships, we have someone else who has a completely different money story than we do. And we're trying to navigate that relationship dynamic. And so you're also getting to see what that can look like in a positive way when you have a lot of tension where you might be coming from different places with your partner.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I realized on my outline, I forgot number 8, take inspired action. Oh
Thank you.
no. Sorry. I just
No,
realized
it's
it.
okay. It's so
I
funny.
was like, that doesn't say
There's
abundant.
another
It
part.
says abundant.
Thank you. Take inspired action. Of course, you can't do anything if you just sit with all of it. And I know you said that it's all about taking action and having your listeners really go for it. So yes, it's funny that that's most
I know.
very, very
That's
important.
it's the most important thing, and I left it out.
Me too. I wrote the book.
Well, that and to that end, and I've said this a lot lately. Probably everybody's like getting tired of hearing it, but reading books, listening to podcasts, getting coaching and mentorships, and maybe going to in-person networking groups or doing some networking online. All of that is important. You need your tribe. And if you are going to break out of what society is telling you and do something like a little against the grain, it's nice to feel like you're not against the grain by having the right people around you and having the knowledge and having the foundations. And all of that is important. But if you just do that, you haven't done any more than anybody who hasn't done any of those things, right? You might as well have done none of it if you don't take that action. It's like, it's so important. And I love my listeners, but I hope they haven't just been listening for the last 5 years and not taken any of these steps, not taken action at the end of it.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I actually have pivoted my business in times because I realized that I had a lot of folks showing up who wanted to learn for the sake of learning. And
Yep.
Tony Robbins talks about this. Like, that is not the thing. The thing is, are you taking action? You don't even have to understand it as well. But if you take action, you're going to be the one who is creating what you really want.
I think we get a lot of people that think, okay, I just need to know, like, I don't know enough. I just need to know
Yeah.
one more thing. And it is uncomfortable. I don't know if this is human nature, or just maybe my nature, but like acting through ambiguity is very difficult and uncomfortable, but you're never going to know 100% of everything. Like when you, for example, do like a real estate deal, you have to make assumptions. You have to make assumptions of what, if you have like a floating rate debt, what that interest rate is going to be. You have to make assumptions about what rent is going to be. Is it going to go up? Insurance, taxes. I mean, you have to make a lot of assumptions. And I think that's just part of what people try to do is like they're trying to control everything by knowing as much as possible and feel like they're in control. But at the end, you can't know everything. You have to act in spite of, I don't know, fear, but for sure ambiguity.
Yeah. The people that I see succeed the most, especially as in business ownership, and this isn't something that I had in the beginning, but I've learned it over time, is you've got to just be building it while you're running it. Like you can't, people will be like, oh, I've got to get my website finished. And that's like a year and all this money. And
Yeah.
you're like, that you're never going to make money off your website. Like that's not what it's there for. It's like a business card these days,
Yeah.
but like all these steps that come up versus just this iterative learning and shifting, and I do think it takes a certain level of confidence in yourself that you're going to be okay, and it's okay to try and fail and try again and fail, and you get so good at failing that all of a sudden you don't fail as much because you're now succeeding because of all that you've learned.
So one thing that I read in the conclusion of your book was about embracing life's shadows. And I was wondering if you could tell listeners what it means to do that.
This is it does tie into confidence because shadows are the aspects of ourselves that we don't necessarily want anyone to know about. Like we'd prefer to keep them hidden, sometimes even, hidden from ourselves, hence the shadow term that Jung taught about. But what I've seen is that many times the areas that we're least comfortable with or feel weakest about have some really beautiful aspects to them, even if it's just making us more humble and connected to other people. Because when we learn about ourselves and those weaknesses, and we're not afraid to share them, maybe not with the world, but at least with the people most important to us, coach, partner, friend, we start to realize that they aren't as big of a deal as we gave them credit to. We get assistance and we take them out of the shadow and we bring light to them and we integrate them back into a place where maybe it's something that we're always going to make fun of ourselves about because it's just how, like, we're instead of it being something we're afraid of, we're happily optimistic and we are able to laugh at it because it is pretty darn funny. It's just part of who we are. It's not bad or good, it just is. And so that is a very healthy attitude that people will find you and your work and your efforts far more attractive when you're comfortable with those aspects of ourselves because we live in a world that works so hard to make it look like we're perfect. So now you become more relatable, you become more interesting. So many good things come. But that's my take on shadows.
Yeah, I thought that would be something that people could start thinking about right when they're done listening. And also, I think if you start to illuminate those shadows with the people closest to you, starting with yourself, but especially others, I think you might find that they reciprocate and you're not, they are then able to share more and there's more vulnerability and you start to feel more connected to others, which is what you were saying. But I think that's just like a natural human nature thing where you're going to feel like, oh, I'm not actually alone and it's not that weird and it's okay to be a little bit flawed and totally authentic and human.
Yeah, connection. I mean, maybe not everyone has that high on their values, but I know it's really high on my values. Like, I want to feel connected to the world around me. I want to feel connected to the people that are important to me. And this is one of those ways that we can deepen those relationships.
And in a world of AI in the future and perfection and robots and whatever, it's going to be these human elements that set us apart going forward. And it's going to be
Agreed.
the human elements of interacting with others that we appreciate the most, not the curated looking fake on Instagram thing, because that might not even be a real person in the future.
Eventually, we won't know.
So, is there anything else you want to add, Lisa, before we wrap up?
Just that I've loved this conversation. I love the way that you approach this topic and that people, everyone listening, I would invite you to, no matter what, like really think about a goal or a possibility that you haven't been willing to even stretch yourself around. Like, the invitation is that I wouldn't be here talking to you about becoming a millionaire in my mid 30s if I hadn't had to again and again and again question my assumptions and really be like, no, no, I refuse to allow that to define me. And so stretch yourself, find something, whether it be running a marathon or, like becoming a millionaire, like find something that stretches you because you will become a better human as a result of what happens on your pathway to that goal.
And I think it's a, is it a Bill Gates quote where he says, we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. You can't accomplish everything that you can in 10 years if you don't set those goals. Because you just, that's just human nature. So, why don't you
Yeah.
tell people, Lisa, how to get in touch with you and find you on the interwebs?
Yeah. So if you have questions about this conversation, feel free to pop me an email at lpeterson@wealthclinic.com. Always happy to field questions or help you if you're at a crossroad. You can go to wealthclinic.com/vision and you can get some meditations, first chapters of the Mindful Millionaire book and the Money Catalyst book to see if it's something that resonates. Yeah,
Awesome.
on social media, we will give them the notes of where they can connect there too.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll put your social media links in the show notes. And you guys You know this by now, but I'm going to tell you every single time. You can follow me on Twitter X at Adulting is Easy, Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real, YouTube at Adulting is Easy. If you like this episode, you'll also like episode 204, Definition of Courage, Act in Spite of Fear. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, we made adulting a little easier for you.